Unfortunately, it feels like it's going to be another summer heading our way where we're going to have one of our best player essentially being linked to a move away. We had it last summer with Declan Rice. We knew it was coming, but with Lucas Paqueta, it's something that I think we're all kind of bracing ourselves for as West Ham fans, that he could well be on his way to Man City more than likely. It's how it's always been shaped. Let's be honest, had this betting stuff not come out, Lucas Paqueta would have been a Manchester City player this season. That's the only reason he stayed at West Ham. I've been really pleasantly surprised by the player, actually, though. Firstly, let's talk about this season. He's been excellent. I mean, he has been in absolutely brilliant form for us. I know that he's had a couple of recent injuries. He's still kind of, you feel he's getting over. So probably not quite 100% yet, but he has been, overall, been fantastic for us. And I think it's a testament to the man, really, in terms of how he's not down tools. Because I was really worried about that. When this allegation stuff came up, my first fear with it was that we might have another Payet situation. Maybe he might just down tools, he might not want to be here. I was really worried because, let's be honest, he has no real connection with West Ham other than he's a West Ham player at the moment. It's not like he was a boy that dreamt in Brazil of going to East London. So I had that fear, but I've got to say, I think that his reaction and how he's conducted himself has been fantastic. He's been a key player for us once again, and no doubt will be, or hopefully, as long as he stays fit, to the end of the season. This week, Paqueta was in a press conference. This is the first press conference where you feel that he's been able to be challenged by the press on some certain issues. One being his link away from the football club, the other being these betting allegations. So it was really interesting to see how he was going to deal with that and what he was going to say. And I mentioned Declan Rice earlier. If you remember when last season Declan Rice was in the press, he was questioned about moves to Arsenal, and not so much moves to Arsenal but moves away from West Ham. I was never happy with his answers. I actually found it quite disrespectful, because if you remember at the time we were in a relegation battle, he's the captain of West Ham, and he didn't at all pour any water on those suggestions that he might be leaving. If anything, he added fuel to the fire. He was actually saying, well, yeah, I want to play in the Champions League. Who doesn't? I'm here with these other players and they're all playing in it. And it wasn't very good. I'm paraphrasing a bit there, so I don't want to be nasty towards Declan, but it certainly wasn't a response that us West Ham fans particularly liked. And I just remember it. I remember it well, and I was really let down by Declan, actually. I just felt that we did, and it just confirmed, didn't it? He's leaving. He's definitely leaving, because he's basically publicly saying he wants to go without saying those words exactly. So I've got to be honest, when Paqueta was then selected to do his press conference for Brazil, and he's then getting asked those sort of same questions about links away from West Ham, and as I say, talk about the betting allegations, we'll talk about that in a second. I'm expecting possibly something similar. That he might be going, yeah, it's my dream, it's every boy's dreams, playing the Champions League, something like that. Not at all. Not at all from Paqueta. He was really respectful towards West Ham, saying that he's really enjoying his time at the club. But don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that he's staying, okay? I'm not saying, well, yeah, here we go. But I'm not saying, but I will say it probably adds a little bit, like there's a chance he will. There's a chance. He certainly didn't come across as a player desperate to leave West Ham, and that he was unhappy in any way. He said he's got a lot of respect for the club, and basically saying he was happy where he was. But he also talked about David Moyes. Now, I for one have been critical of Moyes when I felt it's been deserved in terms of certain performances, etc., and also his treatment of some of the players. I think it's fair to say that when you get that kind of constant negativity surrounding Moyes and how he sort of treats certain players, look at the academy lads, it doesn't play, and all these things that they kind of build up, it's very hard to imagine that the fact, because we know Moyes as we do, like in terms of what we see in the press conferences, etc., and how stubborn he can be and all that. It's quite hard to imagine that he's got a really positive work relationship with someone like Lucas Paqueta. I mean, I don't know Lucas Paqueta, I don't know anything really about him, really, other than he's a very gifted player. But when you sort of see his personality, the dancing, the tricks and stuff, I can't imagine they're best mates, you know what I mean? So I've always been quite concerned with that in terms of Moyes and Paqueta. Like, is that another factor? Is he thinking, I just don't want to work for him? I mean, look, the opportunity for him to go to Man City, work for Pep Guardiola, it's and play for that sort of level of side, it's going to obviously be something he wants to do. Who wouldn't, right? But I've got to say, I thought that when he was asked about West Ham and David Moyes, it was really surprising. Really impressive, actually. he was very respectful towards Moyes. He says he's got a very good working relationship with him. And he owes him a lot. It feels like he owes the manager. It feels like Moyes has seriously put an arm around Paqueta and helped him through this betting allegation, which Paqueta also touched on, saying that he's still helping with the situation and wants to get it resolved. How that's going to pan out exactly, I'm not quite sure at the moment. It feels like it's still rumbling on. As I've said in previous videos, I think actually the whole thing's done West Ham a huge favour, actually. But I was impressed with Paqueta. I thought that what he had to say about David Moyes and West Ham was really respectful. And it actually gives me a little bit of hope. A little bit of hope that, do you know what, he might not be going. I mean, it's likely he will. I still think he will. But I think there's a chance he'll stay as well. He doesn't come across a man that's desperate to get out of West Ham. When you think of Declan Rice, there was always that feeling that he wanted to go. He really wanted to go. I mean, then obviously we had, if you remember after our cup win, wasn't it? David Sullivan came out publicly and said, yeah, Declan's basically definitely leaving. He didn't want to stay. And the West Ham had tried to keep him. But you don't get the feeling like that with Paqueta. I don't get the feeling that he's saying to the club, I can't wait to leave, I can't wait to leave, I want to go. I think he could be swayed to stay. But of course there has to be certain circumstances there. One, that the clubs don't come in for him that we hope so. I mean, that's a chance. There's a chance that Man City decide they're not going to pursue it. I know that we keep hearing that they will, then possibly they will do. But there's other clubs interested. But let's be honest, it's an expensive signing. And look at the FFP situation going on at the moment in football. There's not many clubs going to be throwing around £100 million for players at the moment. You know what I mean? They've got to be really careful, which can also help us. But whether it may be that he stays or goes, as I say, I still think he'll go, inevitably. I think he will this summer. That's my gut feeling. But I was really impressed with what he had to say about David Moyes, actually. I thought that was a good pat on the back for the manager. And do you know what? It probably helps David Moyes, him coming out and saying that. Because, let's be honest, the club at the end of the season are going to be weighing up whether to keep Moyes at the club. Of course, the vast majority of that's going to be on the performance of the team and where the team is and how we finish up, etc, etc. But when you've got a player like Lucas Paqueta coming out and saying something like that about the manager, being really respectful of him, basically saying that he was the key reason for him getting through this, that Moyes was a key factor in that, I think that's a big tick against Moyes' name. I really do. I think that will really help the club. Help Moyes, when it comes to the negotiations and discussions at the end of the season. You know, whether that's a good thing for some or not, I don't know. Obviously, some fans don't want to keep Moyes, some do. It's a very split fan base at the moment, obviously, with David Moyes. But I will say that I think that what Paqueta had to say was a real testament to him, actually, and a sort of a reminder sometimes that Moyes actually, although he can be a pain in the arse with his tactics and really stubborn and difficult, I know he can be difficult at times as a West Ham fan to deal with. But he's also a decent bloke. Do you know what I mean? You do feel like there is a decent bloke in him, and he's always come across that way. Do you know what I mean? He isn't a bad person. I know there are certain players that won't like working for him. We've seen it with staff as well. Don't like working with him. But to have someone like Paqueta really give him his backing like that, I think was quite big for Moyes, and it was good to hear, actually. And I was pleased to hear it. Well, but with Paqueta though, in his future, I mean, look, as I say, I still think he'll go. But I'll tell you what, he's done no harm at all in the respect he's shown for West Ham.